I had a very close friend at university who's from Ceredigion and grew up Welsh as his first language. And I studied linguistics at university, and Welsh is often used as an example for something weird in linguistics because it does things very differently to lots of other languages. And so when I met Glyn's parents, I said, I'd love to come and learn some Welsh and maybe I can help you on the farm in return, because he grew up on a farm. And his dad said, great, you can come, it's lambing season in March. So I ended up going and spending weeks in the muck, learning Welsh and birthing sheep. And off the experience of not only learning about Welsh and the sort of hidden world there, but also learning about what it's like to be on a sheep farm. That was the sort of impetus for making Knackered. Seeing this kind of world that was very different to what my experience was. And what was interesting to me as well as an English speaker, learning Welsh, for so long, all I could hear when I was listening to everyone speak around me was just the swear words, which is why they have a big role in Knackered, because the swear words were all I could hear when people were chatting.
It's exactly the same with me in Irish. I've forgotten loads of the language, but the swear words stick out.
So Glyn co-wrote it with me. I'd sort of write terrible Welsh and he'd make it good. But we chatted a lot about how there are quite a few... I think it's not just Welsh films, but also other minority language films where like the language is all really proper. So we were very clear that we wanted from the start to have lots of bratiaith, lots of idioms and slang and Wenglish, and stuff that didn't sound grammatical. And we had like, one of the actors came up to us at one point and we had a line written for her. And she was like, the line was originally like, it was like the line which is like, sheep don't wear trousers. And it was originally, Didi devad dim and gwisgo trousers. But she was like, I wouldn't actually use the Didi part. I would just say, mae devad dim, which is grammatically incorrect. But she was like, that's how I'd say it. Can I say that instead? So we were like, yeah, we want it to be how you would say it, not how it's correct in a book. So that was something that was interesting for us.
And I'm wondering what you think about the kind of role that young people can play in bringing the language forward and keeping it alive and vibrant and something that's changing and that's tied to how people live their lives.
It's a tricky question. I think, well, my first thought was like, why are we seeing so many young people? And I was thinking, it's also because short film is the medium of people trying to make their break and working on zero budget and I feel like that tends to be young people starting out a lot as well. But it's up to also, I guess, young people to keep the language going, because you're right, if it is old people and then it stops there, then you haven't got a language anymore. And it's interesting. So I've been chatting a lot with, I know a director who's just done a short film in Cornish, and there's so few Cornish speakers, and they basically had a team of the grown-ups who speak Cornish who were there to help them with the language, and then the crew were all young people, and the old grown-up team were kind of supporting and helping translate and helping with the pronunciation and stuff, but they were very keen on supporting young people, because if you don't have young people speaking the language, then you end up not having anyone speaking the language. So I guess there's that kind of responsibility to make sure that young people are still speaking it and make it exciting. It's not a boring thing.
Yeah, with your film really pulling out the humour in the language, and a lot of the film kind of working on this bilingual level where the subtitles are playing with what's being said and what we can hear, and it's not expressly political in that it's not necessarily about the language, but it is playing with the language in this way that requires having an awareness of it. Were there any things you were thinking about there, about trying to draw humour out of the differences between the languages and how we kind of think about translation?
With a connection to the political, or
just in general?
In general? Yeah, like I said, it was based on my experience of being an outsider, and the only words I could hear were swear words at first, or words that, I mean, there are all sorts of English words in there that because there are so many loan words that you end up hearing, I don't know, mouth to mouth or something like that. And we wanted to do more jokes like that, which were like the English translation just being completely wrong, and it was just be a joke for Welsh speakers. But then we realised it makes it really inaccessible. So like, if we screen it to someone who is watching it in another country and speaks a different language and needs to use and it's like, oh, we suddenly lose a load of audience if we're doing that. So we were like trying really hard where every time there's like a joke where the subtitles change, it's like, I don't know, you've got the word bollocks in the up on the screen saying this is a true story, or that you can hear it being completely different. But it was one that, yeah, we played around a little bit. It was quite fun. We shot the whole film in Welsh, and then we got to sit down afterwards and be like, how are we going to translate this for the subtitles? Because there was bits of, improv and so on set. But then, yeah, it was trying to figure out what was funny without also over-egging it, because the more I watch it, the less I find those bits funny, and I find other bits funny.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone seems to find the first time watching someone say fuck and it says, oh, I'm ruined at the bottom. People really like that, which is nice. It's nice to hear. I guess it's weird. It's different for me because it's not a language that I can properly speak very well. It was a language that I was learning. So I had Glyn with me who was making sure that it sounded right and it was authentic, and that that was a world we were looking after. And then I was sort of selfishly being okay, but I know a lot of my friends will want to watch this and they won't speak a lick of Welsh. So I was being their eyes and ears and being like, okay, I can be the perspective that doesn't have a clue about what's going on. And it was, sort of straddling both sides of that a little bit.
I just wanted to ask about, obviously when you're making a film, there's a lot of thought that has to go into it, and it can be really hard to find funding, especially for films that are about maybe minority languages or things that, I don't know, in society it seems like these languages are being pushed out. So I was just wondering, for like each of you, at what point did you realise you were passionate about, propelling these languages out to different audiences? And like particularly for, I assume you're English, like at what point did you realise that you really wanted a Welsh language film to be put out there?
So we made our film because I was working on the farm and I learnt about what a knacker man was and what a dead box is, and I thought that was a funny way to get rid of a dead body. And then I thought the film would be way better in Welsh than in English because that's the environment that these characters are in. And I think I've actually become much more passionate. I was trying to learn Welsh anyway, but I think I've become more passionate about the language and minority language filmmaking since making that film, because now we've been able to go to quite a few Welsh festivals, which is really exciting. And I've been trying to slowly learn about other languages that I knew nothing about, like meeting the Cornish director and finding out a bit about that. Been chatting to someone from the Isle of Man about the very, very, very small Manx filmmaking community, which is really interesting. And there are a couple of minority language festivals, and there are a couple, weirdly, they all seem to be in Italy. But we got into one there and Glyn went to that and said it was amazing to go and see different languages from across the world that are all minorities in their own respective countries being pushed to the forefront. So that it's been a journey since making the film, which is kind of weird because we've had to try and push to get it shown, not like any harder than any other film. It's really hard to get any film shown, but in pushing it, we're trying to show the minority language card, and then that's meant we've got to research what does that mean and what's the context of sharing these films, and it's gotten really exciting to learn about that and be on that journey.